Your management team at work is losing its grip on reality once they start micromanaging and trying to control every little thing. I feel like the workplace culture in my department has gone downhill tremendously since the beginning of this year, and I'm starting to see very familiar patterns that I've witnessed in other departments or companies that I've worked for. The management team will shoot itself in the foot by implementing some kind of change or process, and they get a lot of pushback from their subordinates and colleagues, especially if it doesn't necessarily make sense or there's a lot of friction or consequences as a result of that change, right? And I think this is very potentially ego triggering because working in corporate, it's very optics driven. And so you get all these people who care so much about what other people think in terms of their authority and their competence. And this sort of like triggers like a very weird defensiveness. I've noticed that instead of trying to empathize or say what they really want to say, they end up doubling down, almost to sort of like reaffirm their authority, because I think a lot of times they don't want to be questioned, right? They feel like it's a stab to their power or their control if they start letting people question too much. I feel like the management team is becoming weirdly paranoid in the sense that they're now monitoring the times that you come in and out, wanting to see what you complete throughout the day with like some kind of tracking log. They're even starting to keep an eye on who hangs out with who and who talks to who. Finding like ways to justify separating people, they'll kind of like mask it with some professional excuse, about, oh, separating you so you guys can kind of focus and not talk about personal things during, work hours, which is something that never really bothered them before prior to them being questioned. They were all for team bonding and people getting along. And let's be for real, we work in an office, so we're not saving lives and people chit chat and talk all the time, right? But now it's starting to bother them. And I don't know if they're subconsciously doing this or they're consciously doing this, but it's almost like they're trying to weaponize certain standards and they feel like they're losing control. They start holding on even tighter, thinking that, well, if they just start being stricter, everyone's just going to fall in line. But I don't know if it's because management team is full of Gen Xers who have been in corporate for decades and they just have lost touch with reality. But I don't think they realize that we don't view them as they're doing us a huge favor by keeping us employed. We feel like we're doing you a favor. You are in need of a worker and we are fulfilling that with a service, with our time. And maybe it's a generational thing, I don't know, but it almost comes across like they grew up thinking that having a certain title meant that they owned a person essentially and have the right to tell you who you can and hang out with during your personal time, which is just bullshit and just so delusional, And so as a result of all this nonsense and politics, things are sort of starting to shift in the department where people are considering leaving, changing departments. And basically, I think it's sort of shaken them up a bit in the sense that, well, it's kind of a reality check, right? And I feel like this was meant to happen because energetically speaking, it feels like this is the last stretch of the status quo. Like the status quo is on its last dying breath and there's going to be a shakeup. Not just at my workplace, but I feel like all around the world. But it's sort of mirroring in my proximity and manifesting in my workplace. So when I heard about one of my coworkers potentially getting a job offer and then some others, potentially leaving soon, I was so like proud of them and relieved, even though I'm going to miss them. Don't get me wrong. These are some of the greatest people I've ever worked with, very kind, professional, funny. I have nothing but nice things to say about them. And we may not be perfect employees. No employee is, but I feel like we're damn decent ones, and you could do a hell of a lot worse than us. And sometimes the management team is just so ungrateful, and they need to be reminded that, hey, the literacy rate out there is dropping. You should be grateful that you have employees here who can string together a coherent sentence and analyze things, because I swear to God, the things that I'm hearing about Gen Alpha, and that's going to be their next wave of employees, and so they really need to get it together. So I'm so glad these people are being put on notice and they're getting put in check. So they better start acting different. Unfortunately, I'm already like mentally out the door. I'm just waiting for my opportunity to come through. I feel like there's something around the corner that is gonna catapult me to a new phase of my life. I don't know what it is yet. That's very on brand for this channel, 3 feet ahead. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, whatever vibes and thoughts I have at the moment. But I do feel like my time is coming. It might not be right now. It might not be in the next few months, but hopefully within the year. And all of this has really just confirmed my belief that I cannot work in a corporate system. I cannot work for someone else, because I'm seeing the same pattern. And I feel like the world is run by insecure egomaniacs who have lost touch with reality and think that the four walls of their office is as big as the world gets. Like, no, you walk out of this building, your title, my title doesn't mean shit. And I also don't want to be in an environment where I'm penalized for not doing someone else's job. Corporate loves to weaponize being a team player and helping out and putting all kinds of bullshit in your job description. They can literally put anything in your job description now, as long as they have the line, other duties as assigned or whatever, But after a while, there's a limit. If they've been there for almost a year and they can't keep up, maybe that needs to be reevaluated. But instead of doing their job of coaching and managing or whatever, they have decided to make it everyone else's responsibility to take on the extra work. And I just don't want to do that anymore. I feel like almost every place that I've worked has taken advantage of me and other people in that sense, because it's easier to push the responsibility onto someone else rather than actually coach the damn person or fire them. I really just want to be a completely independent contributor and do what's assigned to me, because I believe I can do good work. I'm not the most perfect or the best employee out there, but I want to say that I can put 2 and 2 together and I can work independently. I don't need a lot of hand holding. I'm very good at just like figuring things out and connecting the dots, but I won't be made to feel like I'm not a team player for not wanting to hold someone's hand, I'm really hoping that there's something out there. I mean, obviously I want to be, self-employed and have my own writing or content creation business. But in the meantime, I'm hoping for some kind of bridge or gap position that will allow me to just excel on my own and not be made to feel like I'm not a team player or I'm not kind or empathetic. I am. I just have my limits. Corporate loves to weaponize that shit. I know how to be professional. I know how to get shit done. It's just all that other stuff. I feel like anytime you work with a group of people, you're just like at the mercy of their insecurities, their traumas, their triggers. Just, it's like they're walking bruises almost, like an open wound. Everyone's just walking around with an open wound, and anything that even remotely touches it triggers them. So I'm just really tired of that. And it's not that I don't want to do work that helps people, and it's not that I don't want to connect with people. I definitely do, but I just cannot deal with people who clearly need to go to therapy, who are clearly out of touch with reality, clearly just need a slap in the face, So Yeah, that's my rant for today. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of workplace rants, but we'll see how it goes.